Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last set of notes. It's very exciting. This is the end, and then we're going to start reviewing for our final exam. This is a really quick set of notes. Shouldn't take us too long to get through. It is going to cover modern American issues, some kind of hot topics, if you will, of things that have been relevant. I think the title says it all. I don't know why I'm explaining this. And hopefully a lot of this isn't new information to you guys. This is all in relation to the time that you have grown up through. So hopefully I'm tapping into some of your kind of general cultural knowledge here. So let's dive right in and get this out of the way. As we kind of left off with our last set of notes with our end of the Cold War and our modern American presidents, we mentioned that terrorism has lately been an issue for us, especially after the September 11th attacks. Again, we mentioned that in our last set of notes when we were talking about George W. Bush. Some more recent ones, especially that the SOL mentions, are the Boston Marathon bombings, and unfortunately there are others that we could point out as examples. And this has been, as you probably could have guessed, quite an issue in America on how do we try and protect ourselves from this. What ways can we make ourselves safer and prevent future terrorist attacks? Therefore, security has become an important topic in government. We added a new department in the executive branch, Department of Homeland Security. It's exactly what it sounds like, securing the homeland, right? Worrying about how to keep ourselves safe here at home. There are a couple of ways that we've done this. The government develops a bunch of different types of laws and departments. Like I said, one of those departments was Homeland Security. We also have other smaller departments. They pass a law. I should probably have these flipped. This is one of those departments. It's called the TSA. Stands for, I'm sure you've heard of it, stands for Transportation Security Agency. If you have ever traveled on a plane, train, or long distance bus, you have gone through TSA screening. The kind of Winchester, public transportation, those kind of buses that take you, over to the mall or whatever, those are not run by TSA. But if you were ever to take a bus from, here to New York City, that would be screened by TSA. The airport's usually where we see it the most, right? You have to put your bags through the metal detector screening thing. They like x-ray them and make sure you don't have anything in there. They send you through the metal detector, or they have fancy new ways of doing that now too. So all of those things are ways that we have implemented safety strategies, right? Making sure that people aren't bringing weapons and other dangerous items onto planes, making sure that you actually have a ticket, you're actually getting on a plane. Before 9/11, before the terrorist attacks in September 11th, people could actually, like, if your family wasn't going on your trip with you, right, say you're flying but they're not, they could actually come up to the gate with you and like kind of wave you off as you boarded the plane. Today, that is not how that works. You have to have a boarding pass and a ticket. They will not let you to the gate without a boarding pass or a ticket, to try and keep everybody safe and make sure the people that are around the planes and getting on the planes actually have tickets and such and belong there. Okay, I really should flip these. Also, we have the Patriot Act that gets passed shortly after 9/11, and it gave the government a lot of power in terms of like investigative tools under the branch or excuse, or I say excuse because excuse sounds like it's untrue. Well, anyway, so they are trying to kick it in a high gear and look for other suspected terrorists and try and prevent further terrorist attacks. And so they passed the Patriot Act, and it provides a lot of search tools, I guess is the best way. But it later came out that they weren't necessarily using them for only suspected terrorists. Like, what's the definition of a suspected terrorist? Is it somebody who Googles terrorist, right? Because then every kid who's ever done a project on 9/11 is now a suspected terrorist. So it's like, what's the definition there? And then it came out that they were also using it to just spy on kind of everyday people who weren't suspected of terrorism. So it was a little bit iffy. The Patriot Act gave the government's agencies, investigative agencies, rights to like wiretap, which means the government could listen into phone calls that you were making. And they didn't. It was a much easier process. They didn't have to like go through all the complicated processes to get warrants and stuff. And it was just really, so it got kind of pulled apart in the Supreme Court. Parts of it have been declared unconstitutional. I think by this point, a lot of it has been declared unconstitutional. But the SOL loves to ask about the Patriot Act. They love to mention the Patriot Act. You got lucky you're not taking it, but you are taking a test for me, so maybe we want to at least get the gist of the Patriot Act, right? Okay, let's talk about some Supreme Court rulings. I left these in here because I already made the notes. I'm going to fly through them really quickly, though, because there are only a few that I consider to be terribly important. The rest, the SOL still mentions, but they just drive me nuts. So I'm gonna fly through this really quick. Roe v. Wade, Supreme Court case about right to privacy and medical privacy, specifically about abortion, but it's weird, and we really don't need to get into too much detail about that for the sake of this class. But that's probably one you've at least a little bit heard of. I think there's a movie coming out about that. I think I saw a commercial about that. Anyway, Riley v. California gives you the right to privacy on your cell phones. I think there was some sort of instance where the police were trying to like get into somebody's cell phone to prove that they had committed a crime. Like they were trying to look through text messages and photos to see if there was any evidence that this person had committed. I think it was serious. I think it was like a murder, and there was a big hole to do about can the police like use technology to hack into your cell phone and all that kind of stuff. Riley v. California says that you have the right to privacy on your cell phone, and that if the police are going to look through your photographs, through your text messages, your call logs, etc., that they must have a warrant signed by a judge. So they still can do that. They can look through your cell phone, but they have to go through the process and say, okay, I think this person is a criminal because we have a videotape of them doing this, and a witness saw them and described them doing this, and therefore we think they've committed this crime. We're going to look on their phone for any other evidence. And a judge could say, yes, I think that's enough proof, or no, that's not enough proof. So they can still look through your cell phone, but they must have a warrant to do so. Just FYI. Next is Loving v. Virginia. They actually made a movie about this. It was obviously here in Virginia, hence Virginia. There was a law that it was illegal for interracial couples to get married. So a couple that is of mixed race, like one person is black, one person is white, or today we have other different types of interracial couples, obviously. But it was illegal for a couple to get married, and I think it was a white guy and a black woman. I haven't seen the movie. It's on my to watch list as we're here through, staying at home. But anyway, and they fought it, right? They said, I should be able to marry whoever I want. This was relatively recent. I want to say the 60s. It might have been the 70s, though. Do a quick Google search. It was in 1967. So kind of crazy to think that 1967 is, it's a while ago, but it's not that long ago to be talking about people can't marry somebody of the other race. That's kind of crazy. So obviously it gets struck down, and it is no longer illegal to marry somebody of a different race. Few more here. Arizona v. the Intertribal Council of Arizona. That struck down a law about what kind of ID you need to present when you go to vote. So when you register to vote and you go to vote, you have to show them picture ID with your name on it. That's how they kind of prove who you are. And then you also have to state your address, and they make sure that it matches their records. There are a lot of different types of ID that you can bring to your voter registration. A lot of people use their driver's license if they have one, because that's something everybody has on them usually all of the time. You can also use any kind of state government issued photo ID, so just a regular ID card. If you have like a school ID. When I was in college, I used my JMU ID because I had my picture on it, and JMU was a public university, so it was considered a public photo ID. Now I use my work badge, my teacher badge with my picture on it from WPS, because that was issued by a local government. So it's issued by a government and it has my picture on it. So it's photo ID. You can also bring in a bunch of other stuff. You can bring in like utility bills, right? So an electricity bill or a water bill or something like that that shows your name and the address of where you live. Now, it doesn't have your photograph on it, but it lines up with your address and that kind of stuff. So, different states have different rules. Arizona, at the time, tried to pass a law that said you had to bring proof of citizenship in order to vote. So, you literally had to bring your social security card or your what we call green card, right? Your citizenship papers, whether you were born in the United States or a naturalized citizen. That gets a little iffy when we start talking about Native American tribes, though. A lot of Native American tribes have a form of sovereign. What? A form of. Don't do it again. Okay. A form of sovereignty, which means that they are kind of independent, but still like protected by the United States. It's kind of weird. So, they don't necessarily have citizenship papers. Not that they're not citizens, but they're like also citizens of the Native American tribe. So it's a little iffy there. Again, we don't need to get too much into this for the sake of our course, but it struck down a law. It proved it was unconstitutional to require voters to prove citizenship. Now, a lot of the other methods used to identify yourself are pieces that have required proof of citizenship, but it's not required anymore, right? Like, you don't have to be a citizen in order to open up an electricity account, right? So anyway, that's what that is. And then this one's probably one you've heard of but didn't know you've heard of it. Miranda v. Arizona. What is going on in Arizona? Miranda v. Arizona says that if you are arrested, you must be informed of your constitutional rights now that you've been arrested. We see this the results of this court case in our Miranda rights. If you've ever watched any kind of show or TV where somebody gets arrested, or a movie or whatever where somebody gets arrested, you hear the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. I don't know them all, but it's not my job to know it all. This is basically, like I said, it's all of your constitutional rights relating to being accused of a crime, going to trial and stuff, and they're letting you know that really quick. If somebody arrests you and they do not read you your Miranda rights, you have a pretty good case to get that case thrown out of court. And it's happened in the past where people have just, I guess, forgotten to read the Miranda rights to somebody they've arrested, and they could say, well, I didn't know my rights, and I told them all this stuff, and it should be thrown out, and it is, and then the case goes away. It's really kind of straightforward. It's basically just saying you don't have to talk to the police if you don't want to. They can ask you questions and stuff, but you don't have to answer them. You have the right to a lawyer if you can afford one, like on your own. go ahead and do that. You have the right to do that. If you can't afford one, they'll get a public defender for you. So whether you have money or not, you're getting a lawyer. Now we all know in the real world, the lawyer you hire is probably going to be better than the public defender, the free lawyer, so to speak, but it's better than nothing in a lot of cases. So you have that right. You have the right to have that lawyer with you when the police are questioning you so they can give you guidance. Don't answer that question. Okay, well, if he says this, then, then let's talk about it. So just having legal guidance with you. So that's all that means. Okay. Let's talk about women today. Obviously, more and more women are working. We've seen an upswing in the number of women working after World War II to today. Women are also starting to move into fields that have been traditionally dominated by men. The medicine field, so like nursing, but also surgeons, doctors, other types of medical professionals, as well as STEM positions. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Wow, it's really going to annoy me that that doesn't have a closed parenthesis. Good thing I can solve that easily. So these kinds of jobs in these realms, in science realms, in tech realms, and engineering realms, have been traditionally dominated by men, but we see women starting to move into these. It's really tricky to get women into these positions. They're typically looked down upon by their coworkers that are male, because it's like, oh, it's just a woman. She doesn't know what she's doing. So it's really hard because it just sometimes can be really discouraging for people and that kind of stuff. But we're trying to get more and more women. There's always lots of scholarships. If you're interested in going into medicine or STEM, look for scholarships. There's tons of them out there, tons of different types of way that you can get assistance and help and get involved in a cool career. We also have some other problems with women achieving. We have something called, this is a kind of phenomenon, it's called the glass ceiling. Now, it's not actually a ceiling, right? This is a symbol referring to how women in the workplace are typically less able to progress, if that makes sense. I don't think that makes sense, but anyway. So think about it. So it's a glass ceiling. So it's a ceiling, so you can't go above it, right? It's preventing you, but it's glass. You can see through it. You can see what's above it, but you can't get through it. And this is usually used to refer to kind of, I hate to say tradition, but event of women only being able to reach certain points in the kind of climb to success. Anything past that is seen as like, oh, she's too aggressive. Oh, she's too bossy. Oh, she can't make good decisions because she's too emotional. And so people talk about that as being the glass ceiling. That was big in I don't think it was the 2016. I think it was 2008. I remember there was one political election where everybody was talking about the glass ceiling. I don't remember which one it was. Anyway, additionally, women are still getting paid less, especially women of minority groups. We call this the wage gap. If you're ever watching the news or reading an article or whatever, and someone starts talking about the wage gap, they're talking about how women, white women and women of other ethnicities, as well as men of other ethnicities, are paid compared to white men. It's gotten a lot better over time, but there is still a gap. So let's talk about, I like this graph because it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to understand. So here's white men over here. They get paid $1. Now, obviously, white men aren't getting paid exactly $1. It means for every $1 that they get paid, these other groups get paid this, right? Think about it in percentages as well, right? Let's say white men get paid 100%, okay, compared to these percentages. If this is still confusing for you, leave me a comment and I'll try and come back and explain it again. So for every $1 that a white man makes, Asian men make 96 cents. So see how they're making less, right? A little bit less, but still less. Latino men are making 92 cents for every $1 that a white man makes. White women are making 90 cents for every dollar a white man makes. Black men are making 88 cents for every white man's dollar. Asian women are making 87 cents. Latino women are making 83 cents, and black women are making 79 cents for every dollar that a white man makes. So you can see here the blue is men and the red is women. So you can see, right? A lot of the female groups are on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of being kind of close to what a white man is making. And like I said, this has improved over the years. It definitely has gotten better, but it's, as you can see, not perfect, right? In a perfectly equal world, everybody should be earning the same, not dependent upon their race. A lot of people tell me, well, maybe these people work different jobs and these people no. These studies have been adjusted for same position and same qualifications. So for the same, I don't know, um, vice president of sales job, right? Went to the same school, got the same degree, has the same, previous experience. That same job is going to pay an Asian man $96,000, but if it was to be a Latino woman, it would be $83,000. So they're getting paid less in the same positions with the same qualifications. It's not just that, oh, black women work, less paying jobs than white men. Okay, that's the wage gap. All right. We also see technology change over the course of the years of modern America. Again, this should not be new information to you. I feel like you guys are more in tune with this than even I am. We used to be the tech savvy generation, and I feel like as I get older and older, it all just falls out of my ears. I don't know what's going on. Cell phones has probably been the biggest change for us, being able to communicate on the go. The first cell phones used to take up an entire briefcase. It was 11 pounds. 11 pounds. That is almost as heavy as my cat. I can't imagine just carrying that around all day. They also used to have car phones. You would have a phone installed in your car, and you could make calls from your car, but you had to stop the car. You couldn't do it while you were driving. You had to pull over. It was crazy. But now they do so much more than that, right? It's not just receiving and making calls. Now it's a calculator. Now it's a camera. Now it's a alarm clock and a messenger, and you can play games on it and, check in on the internet and do all these kind of things. And they definitely changed the way. Some people say for the better, some people say for the worse, some people say both. But we can all agree that things are much so very different than they were prior to cell phones. Here's what the first cell phone looked like. This was like a little briefcase thing, and here's the handle, and you just carried it with you. I literally can't even imagine. And then these are some of the other earlier cell phones. I got my first cell phone in the 7th grade, and it looked like this, except it was a rip-off version. This was the golden age of cell phones here. This is a Motorola Razr. The coolest people had them in pink Razr. It's a flip phone, so like this part flips up, and then there's like the keypad underneath. And I have to tell you, if we were in school, I'd pass one around so you guys could slam it closed, because flip phones couldn't do much. But man, when you were on the phone with somebody and you didn't like what you were hearing and you didn't want to talk to them anymore, slamming that thing closed to hang up on them was like the most satisfying thing in the world. It was so great. Or even just in general, if you were just like texting somebody, like you weren't hanging up on them or whatever, but you could just slam it closed and you were mad at them. Ugh, man, it was fantastic. You guys missed out. iPhones are cool, I get it, but slamming that flip phone closed, that was it, man. That was it. You had to pay to text too. I remember I had to pay Some people had 10 cents. I had to pay 30 cents. I don't know what happened with my bill with my company, but I'd pay 30 cents for every text message and $1 for every minute I spoke on the phone. We didn't have any FaceTime, obviously. The camera on that phone was crap. It was crazy. It only had 2 games, Tetris and Brick Breaker. Man, what a throwback. But as you can see, we kind of have progressed. This is an earlier version of the iPhone that we know today. Look at that screen. Wow. I forgot about that. They changed everything. Crazy, man. Crazy. I remember when they switched over from this kind of look to the new look. I was so mad. I didn't do the update for like a year because I was angry. Anyway, yeah, cell phones. Technology has brought a lot of positive things with it. We've had a lot of medical advances, things such as different types of vaccines that have been invented. The one that SOL likes to mention in particular is the polio vaccine. Polio is what, I almost said Abraham Lincoln. Polio is what FDR had that weakened his legs, that gave him that kind of sort of paralysis, and required him to use the wheelchair and the crutches and stuff. That's the vaccine. That's the disease he had. Jonas Salk invents a vaccine for polio. Polio used to be a really big deal. It was deadly, and it also, if you survived it, there was also a lot of side effects and like bad results and stuff, like being paralyzed. So it was very scary for a lot of parents, and obviously didn't want their kids to get polio. People used to not really trust vaccines. In fact, Elvis had to go on television and get his vaccine live on television, for people to like start to believe that vaccines were safe and a good idea. Oh, Elvis is doing it on the TV. Like, can you just imagine like turning on the TV and Lady Gaga is like getting a vaccine. Taylor Swift's like, oh, get your vaccine. Anyway, obviously, medical advancements, surgery, new types of surgery, different methods of performing surgery. I had surgery about a year ago, and it was laparoscopic, which means they use like cameras and robot arms. So your incisions where they cut you open is a lot smaller, and your recovery time, how long it takes you to heal, is a lot quicker. Of course, different types of surgeries, though, right? As we learn more about how the body works, everything that's going on, we can perform different types of surgeries, new types of surgeries, different types of brain surgeries and heart surgeries, and all kinds of new technology and stuff. As well as new types of drugs to help battle diseases. Maybe we don't necessarily have a vaccine for it, but we can work to try and limit the spread of it. Things like cancer, right? We don't necessarily have a cure for cancer, but we have different types of chemotherapy, radiology, and all that kind of stuff to try and at least improve that. Okay? Communication, this is something, again, you probably don't need me to tell you any of these things on this list, but anyway, technology has improved our communication with social media, so we're able to connect to each other. Again, some people say good, some people say it's bad, some people say both. Nonetheless, that is as a result, obviously, of improved technology and more advanced technology, staying connected with friends and family that are far away. Transmission of world news, meaning we're able to hear news from around the world significantly quicker. Doesn't take months for letters to reach us. Now we know the next day if there was, a hurricane or an earthquake or what's going on in a war far away or whatever. As well as online courses and jobs, right? We can do a lot of stuff on the internet now. Can shop. I have had way too much free time. Probably need to cut down on online shopping now that I'm home here. But you can also take courses online. You're doing it right now. Wow. Some jobs are just entirely online. Some people just work online. And lots of, obviously, other things that we could mention. Technology also comes with dangers. Hacking, so kind of breaking into electronically different types of devices. I'm sure you've seen videos and stuff of people hacking into like their at-home cameras and like stalking them and stuff, which is super creepy. Hacking into, you know, your bank account to steal your money, that kind of stuff. Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year. Identity theft is when somebody uses your social security number and other identifying factors in order to, like, usually to like steal money. They'll like open up a credit card, you know, in your name, or take out a loan or something in your name, although that one's a little bit trickier. And then they'll spend all of that money, charge up on the card, and then never pay it, but you're the one who looks like you haven't paid it because it's in your name. There are a couple other ways of identity theft, but that's one of them. As well as outsourcing. Outsourcing. What is outsourcing? Outsourcing is paying people in a different country to do a job instead of paying people in your country to do it because it's cheaper, right? So instead of paying Americans to do a job, paying somebody somewhere else to do it, because they are cheaper than what it would cost here in America. So this is, I mean, it's good for companies because they're saving money, but it's bad for Americans because that means that those jobs are going away, as well as all the things that come with like increased jobs. So things like tax revenue. I mean, the jobs themselves obviously paychecks, but tax revenue, um, um, you know, like what am I trying to say? Like when, like around a factory, when there's like other shops and stuff around there that people kind of spend their money and paychecks at, and housing and all that kind of stuff, it has a huge ripple effect. And so this is something that we put in the danger column. And that's it. Hopefully, like I said, this was all, I guess at least just a refresher, a reminder. Really shouldn't have been anything terribly new. And we're done. We're done. Woo! Had to end on a office, Jeff. Yes, it's Jeff. It is not GIF, and I will fight about that. Goodbye, everyone.